Hello and welcome back to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Simon Gertzen. It is our great pleasure to bring you coverage of the first quarter-final match. Down in the feature match area, we have Hong Kong versus Slovakia. They are seated and ready, and we are going to be kicking things off on our middle table. That is Li Shitian playing Izzet Drakes against Ivan Floch on Jeskai control. But we also have a Golgari mid-range mirror, as well as Selesnya tokens versus Boros Angels at the ready. But again, we're starting things off with the two heavy hitters in the middle table here, Simon. This is Li Shitian versus Ivan Floch, two top-tier players.
Absolutely, and Li is playing this interesting version with a bunch of crash throughs and Warlord's Fury, so the fact that he is not playing Goblin Electromancer means that there are a lot more one-mana cantrips in his deck than in other Izzet Drake lists.
Yeah, you actually see basically the full complement. We've seen him continually cycle cards like Crash Through and Warlord's Fury in the early parts of the game to fill up that graveyard and to find the threats that he needs to find. It's a lot of wheel spinning, but if you can get an Arclight Phoenix or two into the yard, this deck is probably the best deck at getting them back of all the builds that you can make.
Yeah, and he actually found Arclight Phoenix,
times
two of them.
Yeah.
Didn't have it when discarding 2 Tormenting Voice, and that is going to be scary for Floch.
So there's an Arclight Phoenix off of Charticors. Not going to have enough to get it back here with only 1 mana remaining, but boy, next turn could be explosive.
Yeah, and I believe that Li already holding back on an opt to maybe have the chance at these 3 instants or sorceries.
Yeah, I see that he has a Charticors in hand. That will put the second copy of Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard, and then an opt would be the second spell, and anything else, and he's going to have 2 Arclight Phoenix attacking into the red zone right away here.
He also has a bunch of Drakes in his hand, so that's a good backup plan. If he, for example, if he just draws a land here, he could also go for that.
He drew another opt, though it's not clear to me that he has the mana needed to make all of this work just yet, but Charticors can certainly find it for him. Draw 2, and we know he's going to discard that Arclight Phoenix, and there, right off the top, is an island for Li Shitian, and we're going to see these Arclight Phoenixes into play and attacking this turn. There's opt.
And the island was the missing piece.
Right.
Because it allows him to cast the 3rd spell of the turn.
Boy, his hand is stacked up. Let's take a look at that. Boom, baby. The Phoenix will be in the graveyard, but look at that. Double Crackling Drake and an Enigma Drake as the backup plan that you mentioned a minute ago, Simon. Yeah. Even if Floch can deal with these Phoenixes, he's going to have his hands full.
Beacon Bolt is probably the weakest card there, not the card you want in the matchup. That might get boarded out, actually. But here, it is a great draw by Li Shitian. His deck has been doing exactly what it wants to do. Floch mentioned that it is a little bit more of a high variance build. You can draw the wrong part of your deck, but with 2 Phoenixes and 3 Drakes, Li has the tools to pressure the Jeskai control deck. It makes me wonder if Floch should have countered the second Charticors. With full information, we knew that is the second Phoenix and the land that Li was missing.
Li taking his time with this decision here.
Maybe something to note is that Floch's list has 3 Sealaways and 2 Settle the Wreckage. So those are his main ways of dealing with Arclight Phoenix for good.
And there it is, that critical opt. The 3rd spell. And these Arclight Phoenixes are going to get ready to rumble. This is big trouble here for Slovakia in game number 1 on their middle table.
And Floch's hand is not bad for a control hand, but it actually doesn't match up nicely against the threat of the Phoenixes. You can definitely Clarion them away, but they will come back at some point.
And there we go. 2 copies of Arclight Phoenix on the battlefield now. Not much that Ivan Floch can do at this point.
looks like Lee is debating this attack. If you have one Arclight Phoenix, I think there is an argument not to allow Floch to use his mana this turn if he has a Seal Away. With two of them, I would definitely get in there.
Okay. Of course, part of this equation, right, for Li Shitian will be, well, what if Floch just doesn't have a Seal Away in his hand and I get to free roll it? Although, look at this. Li passes the turn. 2 Arclight Phoenixes on the battlefield on turn 4, and he simply says, go.
And that's a victory. That's a big victory for Floch because, as we know, he would have just taken 6 there.
Boy, Ivan Floch has to feel like he dodged a bit of a bullet there, not taking 6 damage straight away from Li Shitian. Now the question is, how does Floch rebuild, though, and get to the point where he's not under this kind of pressure? As the game goes forward, even if he finds a way to mitigate the Arclight Phoenixes, he's going to be facing a lot of Crackling Drakes this game. There's 2 more in hand now for Li Shitian.
Yeah, and Floch actually has a plan which surrounds Teferi, as is usual in these Jeska control deck lists. He even has the 5th land and Teferi in hand. The question is only, how does he create a board state where Teferi is not, too threatened. Immediately killed, yes. One thing I like is actually just casting a Crackling Drake. It's only a 1/4, but it does block the Arclight Phoenix. Not a great card in this spot, but at least something of a board presence.
Right, and that is exactly what Ivan Floch is going to do. He slams Crackling Drake, draws his card for the turn, and now passes his turn back.
Yeah, but your previous turn
Now, does Lee have any ways to get this Crackling Drake out of the way? It is an annoying card to have on the other side of the battlefield when you're trying to win with your own Drakes, because Ivan Floch can fill up his graveyard with instant sorceries as well.
Yes, the good thing is that right now the Crackling Drake has only 1 power. Right. So you can attack into it and then, for example, shock it down. Shock is one of these cards that is not great in the matchup. So if Lee finds uses for it, it's actually quite good.
Yeah, we were also talking earlier about the Beacon Bolt that Lee has in his hand and how traditionally in this matchup it's not amazing, but now, getting that Crackling Drake out of the way next turn seems like it would be good. He's going to go with Enigma Drake here, and he is holding a shock. So yes, a beautiful situation here for Li Shitian. It looks like he's in the tank on it, but I would expect to see him slam in there with those Phoenixes, and then
well,
boom.
actually the fact that he already cast the Enigma Drake kind of means that he isn't, because why would he give all that information to okay.
Oh, he's getting hyper aggressive here. Yeah. There was a maximized velocity in the graveyard, which he's now jump started by discarding yet another Drake.
And Lee is actually, he's playing this deck very differently from what I was expecting.
Same.
The fact that he didn't attack last turn, basically missing out on 6 damage, but now is going hyper aggressive, saying this is the situation where I want to be attacking, and where if you cast Teferi and Seal Away, I still know that I will deal with your Teferi and maybe even threaten lethal. So you can see that he's playing this deck much more like a puzzle. It's entirely possible. We all know how good Li Shitian is at playing Magic. Also, the format he's known for, Modern, is exactly this kind of format which rewards this style of play. But for example, if Floch plays, let's say, Teferi and has a Seal Away for the Enigma Drake, then Lee has already mapped things out that he has the Beacon Bolt to deal with the blocker, and then both Teferi and Floch's life total are under immense pressure.
Sulfur Falls for Ivan Floch, who's just going to simply pass the turn back, leaving up all of his mana. Though in his hand he has 2 very reactive spells in Negate and Sinister Sabotage. Doesn't look like he has anything else to do as far as casting spells.
No,
on Lee's turn.
But if you are Lee, you played around Seal Away on turn 3, and Floch knows that. So now, if you are Lee, you, in a sense, you do have to play around Seal Away still, or at least you have to consider it. It wouldn't make sense to play around it on turn 3 and then not play around it anymore. Same, but now also goes for Settle the Wreckage, because Floch is that's actually the scariest card, I think, for Lee.
This gets interesting now because Floch does have Sinister Sabotage. He can still represent a Seal Away, and counter this this Drake, but believe that Flock has a Settle the Wreckage in his hand. No, I guess not. Thought I saw one, but must have been Teferi.
Come on, man, let's go. And you. I never draw my pawn.
And he says, sure. You have a Crackling Drake. Boy, this one's really starting to get out of hand.
Floch is really selling the Settle the Wreckage.
He really is, and he kind of needs that. He needs that to be picked up here by Lee. This is a very high-level play from these two players. There's Crash Through.
One of the hardest things in Magic is actually not cast your spells.
And look at this. Li Shitian passes the turn back. Yvonne Flock has done it. He has convinced Li Shitian that he has Settled the Wreckage in his hand, even though he doesn't. Boy, what discipline there from Flock as well, not countering the Crackling Drake.
From both sides, actually.
Absolutely.
This is so difficult to be in a high-pressure situation and then say, look, I will decline to do anything or to use my resources that I worked for. And this does look like a Settle the Wreckage in Floch's hand.
Yeah, I think he did actually have one last turn as well. Which makes sense, right? Because Li Shitian is looking at this and saying, that's the one card that I lose to. I'm wondering if Lee can set up some type of attack going forward here that is not everything.
Maybe just one of the Drakes. They are very scary here. And suddenly this Beacon Bolt is looking quite good as well. Beacon Bolt your Crackling Drake, attack with Enigma Drake, or I don't think you want to attack with two creatures.
It would be lethal.
Oh yeah, but then I think
you would force your opponent to use a spell. There's Beacon Bolt. For plenty enough to take down the Crackling Drake. And we're going to see negate here from Flock. But again, this dance is very much still in play. He is left up 4 mana very conspicuously here, and Li Shitian, it's certainly not lost on him.
Now he's forcing Lee to have a 6th land and to discard a card if he wants to jumpstart the Beacon Bolt. At the same time, Floch knew that he needs to use the mana that he has, that's not reserved for Settle the Wreckage, this turn to not fall behind too much.
Yeah, if you're sitting in Yvonne Flock's seat, this is a bit of a high wire act.
Absolutely.
Now he cannot afford to tap the mana for Sinister Sabotage to save his Crackling Drake, and the Jumpstart is going to get the job done to kill it. And Lee looks like he's going to line up potentially one lethal attack, which means two creatures attacking at this point. This is an attack for 11.
The difficulty here is you want to play around Settle the Wreckage, but also if you only attack with one creature, you are running into Seal Away. So then you've not done anything with your turn.
And there it is. Settle the Wreckage out of hand now for Yvonne Flock. By the way, as these players will look to their left and right, they'll see good news and bad news on either side of them. Datiko has won his first game in the Golgari mid-range mirror for Team Hong Kong, but Harnansky on the other side of the battlefield there for Celestia Tokens versus Boros Angels has defeated Wu, so they've split games, and this one actually becomes quite important. So now, a 2-for-1 here for Flock. Can he still set up something to be able to survive? He realistically should not count on being able to survive one hit from the Crackling Drake. It's already going to be lethal here. In fact, it may be right now. I see 8 and then 2 on the Exile, so it looks like it's 10. And here's Deafening Clarion. That will take out the Phoenix. And then another Deafening Clarion here for Flock, and he says, I'm tapped out, play my land, go. Please don't kill me.
And those were some beautiful lines here. Might not be quite enough because Lee's hand is so stacked. And of course, one Arclight Phoenix now in the graveyard, not in exile. That's something that Lee will get back.
Wow, look at this double Crackling Drake, both lethal.
Lee drew so many threats this
He
game.
did. In fact, he discarded one to jumpstart. He's threat flooded, and that doesn't usually happen with this deck. Wow, is that another Settle the Wreckage off the top of the library? No, oh, yeah, actually, it might be. Let's see. There's Teferi, Sinister Sabotage. And yes, it is a Settle the Wreckage, Simon.
And that's the second one in Floch's deck.
Wow, and remember,
two out
Teferi's
of
going to
two.
give him the mana to be able to cast it. And he says go. With Niv Mizzet now as well in hand for Yvonne Floch.
Cannot play
Another Drake off the top of the library here for Li Shitian. Seriously, yeah, he's drawn most of the threats in his deck.
Absolutely, and he's still not out of this because even if he exposes both of the Drakes to another Settle, he has at least one more wave of attackers.
So maybe he's forced to just do so?
Well, the thing is, do you expose both Drakes or do you actually go for more? The thing is, it's much more likely that Floch has Seal Aways than Settle the Wreckage.
Right.
But if you put Floch on only having Seal Away, you attack with everything that you have, then a Settle is backbreaking.
It's devastating.
And even though we know how scary it is to play against Teferi, Lee's hand can definitely push through the final 10 points of damage. I think an attack with both of these Drakes is completely reasonable.
Yeah, like you said, there's an Arclight Phoenix in hand for Lee as well as one in the graveyard, plus a shock. You know, that's a lot of damage right there that Floch is going to have to deal with, but this is sweet. Right now, Li Shitan deep in the tank on how to mitigate this attack step. He's going to start things off by playing Charticores. Maybe just testing the waters a little bit here, but Floch is certainly not going to be tapping his mana.
Yeah, and imagine how impossible this matchup would be if Lee had a bunch of negates available.
Oh, yeah. Wow, what a sweet opener for the quarterfinals here at the World Magic Cup. If you're just tuning in, we're in the first one. This is Hong Kong versus Slovakia. And we're still in game one between the two heavy hitters here on the middle table, Li Shitian and Yvonne Floch, and it has been a sweet one. Floch really just barely hanging on after a nice draw from Lee, but a very timely Settle the Wreckage kept him alive, and now he's drawn the other copy of Settle in his deck, and Li Shitian is trying to figure out if he should play around it, if so, to what extent. Right now he's just continuing to cycle cards. Here's Warlord's Fury once again.
And that's
he played
the
a
third spell.
Charticores too. Mm-hmm.
So the Drakes are coming back, but are they attacking?
Yeah, the Phoenixes are coming back, right.
Sorry, the Phoenix.
Yeah, the Drakes have been there, buddy. They're just waiting to get the orders from Lee. Should I go in there or not? So let's see what Li
Drakes
Shitian does.
don't rise from the ashes.
No, they do not. So this is a lethal attack towards Yvonne Floch with one of the Crackling Drakes, and then a mitigating Arclight Phoenix attack. Looks like it's going towards Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Now, Floch doesn't have a choice here. He must pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm. And what a high-level attack as well, saying, I am threatening lethal with my Crackling Drake, but if you deal with the Drake, I want to at least deal 3 damage to Teferi because I'm holding
Right.
this shock. And still, I'm not attacking with everything because I want to be prepared for 1 Seal Away, I want to be prepared for 2 Seal Aways, and I want to be prepared for Settle the Wreckage.
A beautiful middle ground line found there by Li Shitian, exposing himself to some amount of risk, but it's still leaving himself the ability to win the game on the spot, or at least take care of the most problematic permanents in case the worst case scenario happened, which actually did. It was Settle the Wreckage there from Yvonne Floch to maintain Teferi at 5 loyalty and to maintain his life total above 0.
So my favorite thing about all of this is actually how Lee is always diversifying his threats. He always allows 1 Drake and 1 Phoenix to be exiled, even though you would think the Drakes are more powerful, but the Phoenix can come back from the graveyard. So by keeping both around, there's never an easy solution for Floch that, for example, 1 Settle the Wreckage or 1 Deafening Clarion that takes out everything. It's always keeping the control deck on its toes.
God, I love games like this, Simon. This is such a treat to see first thing in the morning here in Barcelona and watching
that's what we play for, right?
Yes.
It's these kind of games.
Totally. And, if you've played a lot of control decks in your day, you'll sympathize with Ivan Floch trying to manage this the best he can. He's had exactly the right thing at every turn, but still Li Shitian has been able to dominate the board, consistently presenting lethal threats turn after turn after turn.
Yes, and let's give full credit here to Li Shitian, because I can imagine a lot of Is It Drake's players easily losing to this draw by Floch. Look at the graveyard.
Absolutely.
Settle, Clarion, Teferi, negate. This is not something that you play around easily.
That was an Essence Scatter found off of Teferi's plus ability, and it looks like it's desperation time now for Ivan Floch. So he's going to play Chemister's Insight to try to dig for something.
And that's not a good sign.
Not for Ivan.
Not for Ivan, no.
I think Li Shitian's going to start to breathe a bit more of a sigh of relief. It's going to start coming down to things like, how do I play around one seal away, that type of thing.
And with all these main phase draw effects, Li is going to have a pretty good idea that Floch doesn't have much. Also, he's already dealt with both Settle the Wreckages, so that is not a card he has to play around anymore.
Things looking very good for Team Hong Kong here. In game number 1, Li Shitian perhaps on the verge of closing out this game. And you can see he knows these deck lists, and in he comes for the lethal attack, and that is game number 1 going to Hong Kong and Li Shitian, an expertly played game by both players. But in the end, it was a player from Hong Kong who got game number 1. So that means that as far as the game 1s go, here in our opening quarterfinal, Hong Kong up 2-1. Hong Kong has yet to lose in the tournament. They have been absolutely dominating from end to end. And we'll see if that can continue here in the top 8.
And we actually saw Li with his explanation in an interview yesterday, where he said they locked in their decks early on, especially with the Boros Angels choice and his peculiar Is It Drake's version. And then the metagame shifts that happened while they were, I don't know what they were doing, testing Team Sealed. Now suddenly they have a good lineup for the tournament. So it's of course it's good preparation, it's great decks and players, but also a little bit of luck of the draw.
All right, so let's check in. We've got Boros Angels here on the left-hand side of your screen in the hands of Confai Wu. And this is a deck that we don't actually see that many teams playing out in the field, this Angels list. On the other side of the table is Celestia Tokens, and that is a deck we've seen a lot of over the course of the weekend. It's a popular secondary choice to the Golgari deck. And then you'll often see something like the lineup that Slovakia has chosen here with Jeskai Control or a Drake's deck filling out that last seat.
The main advantage being that you have absolutely free choice when it comes to the red spells.
Mm-hmm. We've even seen some teams play big red, given that freedom. Okay, first play of the game here for Wu, but it's a big one. That's Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. And she's going to act as a nice stop sign here for the small creatures that Hernansky's been able to put on the battlefield thanks to History of Benalia and a turn to Adanto Vanguard.
This is one of these cases where if that already stops all the beatdown of Hernansky, you can see that the Boros Angels deck should at least be favored on paper. I know the game score doesn't reflect that, but we all know that Celestia Tokens can have some crazy draws.
And look at this. No fear attack here from Hernansky. He just jams both the Adanto Vanguard and the Knight token off of that history right into the red zone. No fear.
And this is where it's very important to have full knowledge of the deck list, because Hernansky has access to Krull Harpooner. So that even though it wouldn't be a card advantage play, it would deal with Aurelia, which is a super scary card. And if Hernansky only attacks with the Adanto Vanguard, I think he even makes it more difficult for Wu, because that's while not quite a free attack, it could be a bluff attack. This knight token, however, that is definitely going to get eaten up, and Wu knows it.
And this is just a favorable exchange here for Wu. He just says, sure, I'll take the 2 for 1. And here's Flower to go get a forest.
Honestly, I wouldn't even call it a favorable exchange, but this block means that Wu is accepting the fact that not blocking is not going to be an option over the long term. As nice as it would be to keep the Aurelia around.
Right, and I mean, even just at straight card value, I mean, he got to eat a 2/2 knight and then trade for the Harpooner. It's not the end of the world, even though you do have to figure that Aurelia is one of the more important cards in his deck. He's willing to trade it off.
The important thing here being that it doesn't get better in the next couple of turns.
Right.
If you know that your opponent has Krull Harpooner, they're not going to play it without effect. So the same kind of choice is going to wait for you next turn, and then the knights are going to be 4/3s, and it doesn't get better.
Right, and of course your life total suffers in the interim as well. So, also, I mean, Aurelia's legendary. There's 3 of them in the deck. You may just draw another one and be happy that you traded off for value.
And you have just gained quite a bit of tempo here.
Right. Interesting to see that history of Benalia now ticking downwards or upwards towards that 3rd chapter. Given that knight token's no longer on the battlefield, it was 3 extra damage.
Yes, I love this.
But at a big cost.
I love this play, Marshall. Ixalan's binding on a Danto Vanguard. This Vanguard was negating everything that Wu was planning to do. You can't cast Deafening Clarion. You can't block well. It's the card that just sticks around, and taking it out with Ixalan's binding means the main threat is gone, there won't be any further, and you can Deafening Clarion next turn without risking much.
Well, it was an attack for 4 with the pumped up knight, and then kind of a pump fake and go. Nothing yet from Hernansky, perhaps signaling something like March of the Multitudes.
Absolutely. He's representing a March of the Multitudes for 3.
And that is exactly what he's got. Oh, it looks like he was considering playing Amara, Soul of the Accord, to go for a little extra value here. And maybe even a Sapperling Migration, although with 1 forest, only one of those plays would have been available.
But he could have cast Sapperling Migration and then used the Sapperlings to convoke.
Yes.
So not going for maximum creatures, maybe playing around or trying to play around Deafening Clarion a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because the way that he's played it here, of course, Wu is not really incentivized to cast Deafening Clarion at this point, but perhaps wants to trade it off for this knight plus the March of the Multitudes rather than all of those and the Sapperling Migration.
And then Hornansky can just wait until he draws land number 6 and kind of just cast the Migration with Kicker for full value.
Right.
Interesting to see Direfleet Daredevil generate some value in this matchup.
That was stealing a flower there.
Mm-hmm. Getting a Plains.
By the way, no March of the Multitudes there. That was just, okay, I'm just not going to do anything this turn. I'm not going to play Amara Soul of the Court. I'm not going to play Sapperling Migration. I'm not going to play anything. And then I'm going to draw Tristani and play that.
Yeah, at least the final part he couldn't have known about, but certainly a good board state after that Tristani, and everything that weakens Wu's mass removal is just valuable at this point.
Lava Coil to kill Tristani Discordant. And is there an angel or some big threat in our future? Ah, there we go. A second copy of Aurelia. And we mentioned that before. Having traded off Aurelia for value earlier means that casting this Aurelia is pain-free and looking quite nice here as well.
Yes. Wu is playing with fire a little bit because he is under immense pressure only at 7 life. The next turn, for the next turn, Wu must be planning to cast Deafening Clarion, and also gain the life of Aurelia. At least that's what I expect to happen. And Hornansky might be rewarded for his controlling approach to this game, saying, "I can play a long game, even beating 2 Aurelias and a Deafening Clarion, if I just don't overextend."
Let's see what kind of tools Hornansky's working with now. Kind of an awkward second copy of Amara there, but still. The other 3 cards we knew about from before, they look pretty good here.
And Hornansky doesn't have an attack. That is a crucial part.
So we're going to see Amara here. Go. Okay, so turn gets passed now to Team Hong Kong. They're sitting there with, oh, look at that update down on the bottom there. Datico wins the match 2-0 in a huge win there. So Hernansky really shouldering a very heavy load here. If he can manage to finish off Wu this game by playing around these sweepers and picking up the match, that will say, okay, Yvonne Flock, you got to win 2, but they're post-sideboard games when you're the control deck and you're Yvonne Flock.
Yep. Rise to the challenge.
Right. That is, if I'm on Team Slovakia, I can live with that. If Hernansky loses this game, though, things will look very dire from the team from Slovakia.
Absolutely. And here the interesting part is...
Ooh, hello.
Wu was never forced to cast the Deafening Clarion. And that might backfire a little bit because suddenly Hornansky might not have attacks anymore. If he doesn't top deck a pump effect... I don't think he can attack for lethal in
Well, not even close. The Aurelia's going to get lifelink now here, thanks to Lyra Dawnbringer. Right? Yeah.
+1/+1 and lifelink on
Right.
Aurelia.
Yeah, on Aurelia.
And Lyra also being a 5/5 first strike.
Right, that's also not the worst case scenario there. So that was 5 damage coming in from Aurelia. And all of a sudden the race is nearly untenable here from Hernansky's perspective.
Yeah.
Even with this board state. And you said it now, mass pump effect might have enough to get through, although...
Not against the lifelink.
Life totals are not correct, right? Oh, he taps the top of his library. Oh, I think he found a Crawl Harpooner. Yes, and the quick graveyard check signals to me that he did. Unfortunately for him, the only creature in his graveyard is another Crawl Harpooner. It's not enough to take down either Angel.
These Crawl Harpooners don't look great in a deck that is mostly relying on tokens.
That's right. Just not that many creatures around. There, the life totals are correct now. It is 12-11 in favor of Team Hong Kong.
So looking back, the defensive lines of Hornansky to play around a Deafening Clarion that he didn't know existed meant that Wu wasn't even forced to cast it and is now just taking over the game with the bigger creatures.
Yeah, do you want to go tall or do you want to go wide? And the answer in this case is you want to go tall.
Well, we got a masterclass by Lee in the sense of you have to pressure sufficiently to force them to have it, right?
Yes.
Just saying, oh, I'm playing around this is not sufficient.
No, that's level 1. Well, this attack from Hernansky looks pretty desperate, but perhaps it's just attempting to gain enough life to not be dead to these angels in the air. But unfortunately for him, Wu is going to gain a ton of life in this exchange as well. I don't think he's actually taking any damage. He's gaining 10 and taking 6, 7, 8.
Gaining 8, I believe.
8, you're right. So he breaks even on life total then.
And Wu is blocking in a way that Emara doesn't die. so that Crawl Harpooner is not getting more out of its undergrowth trigger. It's a little
Clever,
tiny little play, but
very clever stuff though from Team Hong Kong. You hear Li Shitian talking in the background as well.
So I gain 7. Gain 5 first. Gain 5 first. Yeah.
Gain 5 first. Gain 3.
The normal damage 2 and 8. So take 8 and I gain 3. Take 5 total.
so is Lee there for the strategy or just to calculate the life?
I
total?
think he's just on life total duty here for Wu. Can you hear him talking?
17. So and then now damage resolve. I gain 3 life. And then we take 8. So take 5.
And you gain 7.
And then Hernansky's going to gain 7 after all is said and done, 6 coming in, and then the one that fought against Aurelia. But that did not make any headway as far as the life total on Wu goes. Hernansky, on the other hand, has gained a significant amount of life and will be able to survive the next turn. Are we going to need to see multiple mass pump effects at this point?
I don't think it's enough, because now Wu can also just cast Deafening Clarion. Wu can just calculate what is still beating me here. And honestly, if he attacks with everything here, casts Deafening Clarion and passes the turn, Hernansky, even with all the March of the Multitudes in the world, is not gonna raise that. Crawl Harpooner is kind of a dead card, sadly. As much as I like it in Guilds of Ravnica Limited, to eat those pesky hawks.
Right.
Tough matchup. Tough matchup for the Selesnya token stack. By the way, Marshall, not a lot of Boris Angels players at this tournament.
No.
Just 1 or 2 maybe. So Hong Kong really...
It's looked good every time we've seen it. A little bit of desperation here for Hernansky, playing a second copy of Amara just to get the other one into the graveyard effectively. Trying to build up for that Crawl Harpooner, though only 2.
Wouldn't that have been enough to kill,
Oh,
kill
yes.
Lyra?
Yeah, no second green mana source, it looks like.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because otherwise that would have been a super sweet play.
It
Before
would've.
combat,
Yes.
Amara.
And unfortunately, there goes the board. So that is Hernansky losing every creature he had on the battlefield, still facing down the 2 massive angels. Pump effects happening in combat, pump effects happening from Lyra, lifelink for both of them, and a huge attack here. Down to 8 for Hernansky.
Hernansky now gets to answer Lyra. That is
Yes.
that is more than he had the last turn.
It's true. So here we go. Crawl Harpooner kills Lyra Dawnbringer, and that is a huge problem solved now for Hernansky. It is not impossible to come back from this point.
No, and only because he played the second MR when he had one on the battlefield. So that was a very good play.
But tick-tock, you have one more turn. He's going to need to find a removal spell, and he scoops him up. So that is Hong Kong winning the game and tying things up at a game apiece. So this one is shaping up very interestingly down the stretch. It is going to come down to Li Shitian and Yvonne Flock, or Wu versus Hernansky. It's going to be one of those two that decides this thing. And if I'm sitting in Slovakia's seat, I am not happy right now. This is a tough position to be in. And again, there's fewer people I'd rather have on my side than Yvonne Flock, but he's facing down Li Shitian. He's in that same list. All right, we're underway here in game number 2. Flock's on the play. Opt now from Lee. Wants to know if it resolves. Flock says, yeah, you got it. It's opt. That is not the card I'm going to be countering here. Another one for Lee. Finds search for his Kanta. He's got one of those in his sideboard.
Yep, and that's scary for the control deck, of course.
Right.
Also brings in 2 Disdainful Stroke. That's great against Saddle the Wreckage, maybe Teferi. Dive downs to protect his creatures from other removal.
Ooh, did you see that? Lee just went for the Enigma Drake, just windmilled it on the table, and actually picked it up because he assumed it was going to get countered, and Flock said, "You got it."
Yep.
But you can see why. A much better answer here from Flock. He's got Ixalan's Binding, which is such a huge deal against these blue-red decks. They don't have any way to deal with it, and that's going to lock out all future Enigma Drakes. Now, this is also a big problem, though. There's that search for his Kanta. You said it's annoying for the control player. This is something that he's going to have to deal with going into the long game.
Yeah, and also a permanent type that's difficult to deal with. Especially with
Ixalan's Binding's
yeah.
not the worst at it, but
well, there is a limited amount of Ixalan's Binding you can cast, and actually, if Lee loses his 1 copy of Search for Iskanta, the 1 copy he's actually playing, to Ixalan's Binding, that's also kind of a victory because his Drakes and Phoenixes are going to be safe. Things are going Floch's way a little bit here, though, because there is no pressure on the other side, which gives Floch the time that he wants.
That's right. Flock with a pretty decent hand here as well. He's going to go for Niv Mizzet Perun right now. As we know, that can't be countered. It's also extremely difficult to deal with from Lee's perspective. A card like Beacon Bolt is one of his cleanest answers, and even then you're getting 2 for 1.
And now Lee was extremely punished because he had decided not to cast his creatures, Crackling Drake and 2 Arclight Phoenixes, in his hand, but rather sit on Disdainful Stroke, and then for Floch to play a 6 land, have the perfect mana for Niv Mizzet. That is a disaster.
That is a complete disaster for Li Shitian, and now he's facing down, well, the card of the weekend from my perspective, Niv Mizzet. We saw it a lot in Team Sealed and a lot in Constructed. It's just been everywhere, and this card is so difficult to deal with, especially when you have a limited removal suite like Lee's dealing with, and also when Lee's entire game plan revolves around casting cheap spells. What is he supposed to do? Can't remove it?
No, I just went over the sideboard again. There is Fight with Fire in his sideboard.
Okay.
That is a clean answer to Niv Mizzet.
I mean, as clean as it gets.
Yes, but do you want to bring that in against Jeskai Control? It's not the card.
I mean, you can kill them with it. Maybe it's...
Yeah?
I don't know. Probably not.
It seems playable. And
sure.
In a deck with Tormenting Voice and Charter Course, I think you can go a little bit more crazy. There are certainly bad cards in your main deck that you don't need. But it's still, even that is not a great proposition because you're not guaranteed to have it. And then if Floch untaps with Niv Mizzet, it's just, whoa, that's brutal.
Wow, look at this. This is like an 8 for 2 we see on the battlefield here. He's just locked out Li Shitian. I mean, the deck is called Is It Drakes, and he can't cast any Drakes for the rest of the game. And by the way, Niv Mizzet hits pretty hard too, it turns out. So with 2 mana available for Yvonne Floch, all he needs is something like a negate in hand, and he's got 2 of them. This one's over.
Floch has this locked up and very easily. The moment that Niv Mizzet stuck around and
triggers,
and Floch was allowed to untap.
Looks like Floch's actually going to negate the Tormenting Voice. Another 2 for 1 here for Floch, and let's not forget. Oh, it looks like he's going to negate back, but again, Niv Mizzet is just stupid. Look at this. I mean, they're getting into a counterfight, and Floch's like, sweet, you'll die a turn earlier now. But desperation times now for Li Shitian, who has to fight this fight. He can't be happy about it, but he needs to find some way to kill Niv Mizzet, and he needs to do it soon. And look at this, another Tormenting Voice, which is another damage and another card for Floch. and a couple of cantrips, but he does get back the Phoenixes.
Lee is doing what he can here.
Yes.
He knows that by not casting spells, he's definitely not winning.
Right.
Floch is smart to go into these counter battles, even if he loses them, because he knows that he's just going to draw 5 more cards.
That's right. And here he draws his card for the turn. He can shoot one of the Phoenixes. No, he's going upstairs. That is really bad news now for Li Shitian. It means that Floch feels like he can win the game this turn. Or have inevitability. Oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe he did actually ping the Phoenix. Yeah, he did. Okay. This is what I would expect from Ivan Floch. As if he kills one of the Phoenixes, then the Niv-Mizzet has an attack. So let's see a flurry of spells now from Floch to try to take down game 2 and keep Slovakia in the hunt here. We're in quarterfinal 1.
I think Floch is really just calculating if he has lethal and how he has lethal here. Opt is 2 damage. Expansion Explosion is 2 damage if you copy Opt, and if you deal a total of 4 to the Phoenixes, then your Niv-Mizzet deals 5 to Lee, so it might just be over here.
I would expect it to be over here.
Oh yeah, the question is only if it's over this turn,
Right.
Or if we're going to play another turn cycle.
So expansion, copy, and opt trigger, and then another trigger for the opt when he draws his card as well. So this is just spiraling out of control now as we see Li Shitian's life total plummeting. How about we copy it again? This poor opt has just been targeted by a million things, yet it's still going to resolve. There's another damage, tick-tock. And Ivan Floch well and truly has this one in the bag. So we are going to see a game 3 decider between either Floch and Lee or Wu and Hernansky. And, well, as it stands, Slovakia has to win both of them if they're going to advance. Hong Kong, thanks to Datico down on the bottom part of your screen, is in a great position where they can win either game and they can advance to the semifinals. So the numbers still with Team Hong Kong after that good start, but this could be stage 1 of a comeback for the Slovakian team here in the first quarterfinal.
And this Jeskai control deck looks very good after sideboarding. All the cards really good at stopping the threats of the Jeskai Drake's deck. Niv-Mizzet as the trump card.
Yeah, you know, I go back to that early turn 3. Li Shitian says, play an Enigma Drake. And he just picked it up to put it away because Floch had left up 3 mana. And Floch's like, no, you got it. Ixalan's blinding. It's like, oh, okay, well, that hurts. And then he did one on a Crackling Drake, and it kind of felt like the game was over at that point. Niv-Mizzet, of course, slammed the door on it. Okay, so let's get into action here on Wu versus Hernansky. This is Lesnia Tokens versus Boros Angels. We saw Boros Angels win that second game pretty easily.
Yeah.
But are we on a mulligan here, perhaps, for Hernansky? There's 3, 4, 5, 6 cards there.
6 cards on turn 2. So
okay, yeah, we're okay then. Ooh, Lava Coil on a Saproling. This is an aggressive use of a Lava Coil, but we've seen this yesterday as well. Simon, you mentioned it before, but you know, even killing any creature on the other side just starts to disrupt the synergy of the token stack.
Yeah, it doesn't look intuitive at all, but it's often the correct play. Surely, you can never be quite sure if it's the optimal play because you would have to know what your opponent is holding. But I like this aggressive use of your mana, especially in a deck that is almost guaranteed to win in the late game with the Angels.
Right. Rather than doing nothing. All right, here's History of Benalia. So he says 2 can play at this game. I got tokens too, buddy, and mine are bigger.
And this is the first big problem here for Hernansky. And what I was saying when I said Boros Angels tends to be favored in this matchup, it's just a little bit bigger creatures. 2/2s and 3/3s instead of 1/1s and 2/2s. And then Aurelia and Lyra are just huge.
All right, now we get history fights from both sides, and this is a little bit more of a fair fight than it was in the game prior. Remember, Hernansky had significant mana issues in that second game, really locked in with something like 6 plains and 1 forest on the battlefield, and just was never able to do exactly what he wanted on any given turn.
You're right, but he has different mana issues this game. He actually, I believe, just drew the 3rd land. So if he hadn't drawn that, he would have been stuck with all these expensive cards in hand.
But instead, look at that hand. March of the Multitudes there. Also a baffling end at the ready for some type of threat. And even a Crawl Harpooner, though. The Harpooner, once again, not really maximizing in this deck, given that he's played 2 air quotes creatures, yet neither.
Sorry to interrupt you, Marshall,
Sure.
but we have to welcome Aurelia to the battlefield.
Hello, Aurelia. Welcome to the battlefield. So that's a major problem here for Hernansky.
Absolutely, because now, once again, even as a 2/5 flyer, I mean, she has, I don't know, 7 other abilities, but the fact that suddenly Hernansky is in this weird spot where where he has to attack into Aurelia and hope that she blocks so that he can 2-for-1 himself with the Crowl Harpooner. It really shows that the high toughness creatures in the Boros Angels deck are a big problem for Selesnya token.
And that doesn't even work in this position, right? Because he traded off his Knight token.
Well, because the Knights are going to be stronger next turn on Wu's side of the board.
Right, I'm just saying he can't even do that attack. If a Saproling gets blocked, the Harpooner's not even enough to finish off Aurelia.
And Wu is very aware of the Harpooner. It was a key card in the previous game.
Yes. Okay, well now this is a good fight back in the other direction here. A second History of Benalia off the top of the library for Hernansky. And remember, March of the Multitudes in hand and Tristani. So the land's not really flowing for him at this point, but he does have his opponent down to just the 2/2 Knight plus Aurelia, but he's at 20. Ooh, but there's Lyra Dawnbringer right on time for Team Hong Kong. And all of a sudden, we're going to see a very large attack here. And look at this. On top of all of that, a Mentor trigger from Aurelia.
And that's the 1-2 punch that is almost impossible to beat for Selesnya tokens. I'm looking at the deck list, and Selesnya tokens is just not built with big creatures in mind. Most big creatures, you either can't target them because they are called Carnage Tyrant, or you don't want to target them because you're just swarming. You're going wide and you don't
just go
care.
around them. Yeah,
exactly. Like a Niv Mizzet, you don't want to kill a Niv Mizzet, you want to kill your Jeskai control opponent. But Lyra is just this huge wall that you can't get around.
Right, and you see the types of removal spells that they have. They have cards like Baffling End, which they have in their hand right now, and that Crawl Harpooner, but neither of those are good at killing Lyra Dawnbringer in this deck. Even the Harpooner has a hard time. Just getting the 2 creatures in the yard needed to trade off for the Lyra Dawnbringer is difficult.
Which actually makes me question it as a sideboard card overall.
Yeah.
Maybe it's meant for another matchup. Maybe it's actually meant for the Drakes matchup.
Yeah.
And even there, I'm wondering how often you're going to have 4 power on that Harpooner. Here, it just looks like it's the wrong card for the job.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably just the only thing it's their only chance that they had.
What you can always do with Selesnya tokens, or what you are hoping for to happen, is maybe you can draw multiple Conclave Tribunals. If you manage that, those angels are going to go down.
Well, I think that the hopes of the Slovakian team kind of rest on them finding Conclave Tribunal, and maybe even a couple of them, and very quickly, because Lyra Dawnbringer makes it impossible to race. Even though we have History of Benalia ticking up to chapter number 3, even getting another Knight from the other history, there's no attacks here. Mm-hmm. He somehow just doesn't have any attacks. This is normally the big turn for this deck.
One of the strongest starts you can think of, the double history draw. And, doesn't do anything.
No, it was a land off the top of the library, a Temple Garden. So, there's March of the Multitudes, Tristani. I mean, this draw is supposed to win. If you're Hernansky and you get to go history, March of the Multitudes, and then at some point Tristani Discordant, the game should be over.
Mm-hmm. You are doing what your deck is supposed to do.
Right, and when that happens, you should win, but that does not look to be the case here. This Boros Angels deck just seems like a nightmare for Selesnya tokens, and if that's the case, we will see Hong Kong continue their winning ways, yet to lose in the tournament, and they will continue that trend as well.
And that's the whole secret to their tournament. They decided to play Boros Angels, and they have been preying on the Selesnya tokens deck that was so popular at this event.
Another copy of Aurelia for Wu. And he's going to put Deafening Clarion on the stack. And this should be the death knell here.
This is tough to watch.
We are seeing Slovakia make their exit here in the quarterfinals thanks to Aurelia and Lyra Dawnbringer. You can get a vibe there from Ivan Flock, who's looking at his deck saying, I can do it here. I have the tools needed to beat Li Shitian in sideboarded games with my control deck. But unfortunately for him, it looks like that is not going to be an option, because right now his teammate Hernansky is under immense pressure from Boros Angels. Look at this board state. Just snapshot that. There's literally nothing on the other side of the board for Hernansky. He's going to have 4 lands. That's it. He's going to be facing down like 10 power of life-linking flyers. We're done here.
Well fought, but
yes,
not enough.
Not quite enough here. And the team from Hong Kong, yeah, this is just desperation move here for Hernansky. Why not fight to the bitter end? But it is going to be Hong Kong advancing to the semifinals here from our first quarterfinal match. This was a really fun one to watch. And there's the handshake. Hong Kong continues to dominate the World Magic Cup here in Barcelona, and they are through to the semifinals. Congratulations to Team Hong Kong, and a great run for Slovakia, but it does come to a bitter end here in the quarters. Yeah, that matchup just looks so brutal for them.
And they won game 1, so they had a shot. They had their opportunity. You have to win one of the sideboarded games, and both games the Selesnya token deck didn't really get there. I think game 3 was unwinnable. Game 2, maybe a bit more aggressive, just try shoot for the moon, basically.
Yeah. But as we saw, every single time Lyra Dawnbringer hit the battlefield, there was also an Aurelia, and it looked like the team from Slovakia had answers to neither, let alone one, eventually finding a way to kill Lyra Dawnbringer. But, I mean, they had to throw away multiple creatures to do so, and that's just not a way that you're going to be able to get the job done. So, quarterfinal number 1 goes to Hong Kong. We've still got 3 more quarterfinals to bring you today before we move on to the semis and, of course, the finals. We've got Israel versus China, Japan versus France, and Italy versus Australia lined up for you this morning as well. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll start setting up for our next quarterfinal. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the World Magic Cup. Maria, Rich, Tim, and Matei at the news desk with you. Let's take a look at our bracket as quarterfinal 1 is in the books. Of course, Hong Kong victorious over Slovakia, continuing their undefeated run in this tournament so far.
So we'll get to Israel in just a moment, but because that is our next quarterfinal. But let's just wrap things up from quarterfinal 1. Down on the floor is Brian David Marshall with, I imagine, a rather happy Hong Kong contingent.
I'm here with Team Hong Kong's Li Shitian. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Magic Pro League competitor. He's also undefeated in this tournament as a team. Lee, what's been the secret to this team's success?
Well, the lineup we choose is actually quite good. Like for us, we figure out like the free deck. One of the deck have to sacrifice, and then we decided my deck to be sacrificed. So my Drake deck don't have lava coil. Like the lava coil is in the Boros Angel deck, but then we just like having the white deck being competitive is very important. Like we never let any white or green deck beat us so far in this tournament.
Wow, and you actually have not done a ton of the winning for your team. Your team is 9-0 this point, but you don't have a ton of those wins in constructed personally.
I only got 2 wins so far, but like some of them are unfinished.
Right, like this round.
Yeah.
Any preferences? Have you looked ahead to your semifinal? Do you have any preferences for which team maybe?
I didn't look at the matchup, but so far like yesterday we checked and then we're quite confident. So yeah, for us, like I think most of our bad matchup is control deck, but there's only one control at most in each team, and some team even don't have control decks. So we are fine with anything.
I do want to ask you about, you played Even Flock, that game 1. You go through all these machinations to get 2 Arc-like Phoenixes in play on turn 4, and then you don't attack. That is clearly not first-level Magic because, you're playing the Arc-like Phoenix deck. You want to attack with Arc-like Phoenixes. What were you doing there?
So I cast Chanacos, so he didn't. And then I discard the second Phoenix, so he before he didn't counter if he got counter spell, but he don't counter because I only got 1 Phoenix in the graveyard. But then the fairy, when I cast Op, because I don't play my 4th land, and then I cast Op, and then he even thought for a really long time. So he was thinking so I expecting him thinking about should he counter my Op so that I won't be looking for the land or extra 1 mana cantrip. Then in the end he decided not to counter my spell. So I think he might have seal away some removal. Then and then I bring back 2 Phoenix, and then if I don't attack, he don't get to use his mana. So I just don't attack.
And there's nothing a control deck hates more than not getting to use its mana. Li Shitian, very well played. Congratulations. We'll see if how Hong Kong can keep this undefeated streak going here at the World Magic Cup.
Thanks, BDM. Well, let's head and look forward to our next quarterfinal here, and we're going to start things off with Israel, Team Israel. They've got the youngest player in the entire tournament. There you see him on your screen, led by Shahar Shenhar, 2-time world champion. Let's meet the players here. First off is Yuval Zuckerman. There he is, only 15 years old, lifetime pro points, just 3. What deck did he bring to this tournament? It is none other than Boros Aggro. Classic Boros Aggro build there, full complement of heroic reinforcements. Coming up next, Shahar Shenhar, team captain. You see him there on your screen. Not too old himself at 25 years old, a member of the MPL. Let's take a look at his deck list here. Is It Drake's, a very popular one among the field today. 2 copies of Niv Mizzet. And in the third seat, Amit Etkar, 25 years old as well, 7 lifetime pro points. And he is on, as many people in these teams are, Golgari mid-range.
All right, so Brian David Marshall, he's been a very busy man. He is out on the floor, and he had a chance to talk earlier this morning with the 2-time world champion, Shahar Shenhar. See if we can get there.
2-time world champion, Magic Pro League member, and Team Israel captain, Shahar Shenhar. Shahar, we're getting ready for your quarterfinal just after the match behind us is done. Tell us a little bit about what we should be looking out for fans of Team Israel. What's your best matchup in this quarterfinal?
Well, I think our best matchup is going to be Golgari versus China's big red deck. Game 1 is really good for us because they don't have any way to clear the board. They don't have Star of Extinction in the main deck, so we can just play Carnage Tyrant and they don't really have a way to answer it. Then we have Yuval also playing Boros Weenie against Golgari, and we're on the play, so that's a big advantage there too. And my matchup is Jeskai Control against Is It Drakes. I think he's favored Game 1 and then sideboard, and who knows.
Okay. Now, you have 2 players on your team who this is their first real taste of playing at this level. What have you told them about getting ready for playing? Just playing at the World Magic Cup was a big step up for them. What have you told them about playing on Sunday with all the pressure that comes in these single elimination rounds?
Yeah, every round this entire tournament, they've been super nervous. Every time we win, we're like, oh, just one more. It's pretty nerve-wracking in this tournament, especially for them. But every round I tell them, you guys relax, take it easy. Next round is just another round, like every other round you've played. I think that's the best advice I can give them.
All right. Shahar Shenhar, Team Israel, they're up next here at the World Magic Cup.
All right, so their opponents are China. Let's take a look at the Chinese team for you here. Liu Yuchen, Song Long, and Xu Ming. Let's take a look at them. We'll start with the captain, Liu Yuchen. They seem 37 years old. What deck is he playing? Well, he is the Chinese player on Golgari midrange. In the middle seat, it's Song Long, 28 years old, 3 lifetime pro points, doing a great run this weekend. Jeskai Control is his deck, so of course all your Tefris and your Crackling Drakes. And then we go to Xi Ming playing Big Red. That's the deck that's there, but it's all about the matchup. So take a look at the matchup graphic there for you. Israel, Seat A, Yuval Zuckerman with Boris Aggro, Liu Yuchen with Golgari midrange. Matej,
Yes.
what do we make of that?
I mean, Shahar already summarized it really well. He talked about all the matchups, and I can do nothing but agree with what he said. And especially, I think the understated thing is that Israel is really on the play in all 3 matchups. That's going to be very important, especially because we see a lot of these matches go to 3 games.
Right, and that's because they're the highest seed, which means they won more matches through the course of the tournament. It's sort of one of those hidden stats we track during the event, because although we're all about just advancing each time, you are allocated the wins once you're through. So the 4-0s from Friday were 7-0 effectively, Tim.
Yeah, the sort of the secret little bonus there, in addition to, of course, just getting the peace of mind of being through to day 2 and indeed to future pods a little bit sooner. So, yeah, all of that hard work early on really paying off in terms of now we hit the elimination stages.
All right, so the players are finishing off their shuffling and their mulligans and so on. We're going to squeeze in a very quick break, and when we come back from that, it's going to be time for our second quarterfinal. Just to fill you in, still to come, Japan against France in quarterfinal 3, and then Andrea Mengucci continues his quest to be the only 2-time winner of this event, up against the Australians of David Mines, Matthew Garnham, and Beniley. I'm really looking forward to that quarterfinal. That's going to be great stuff. Tons of stuff coming away at lunchtime, but right now, quick break, and then it'll be quarterfinal 2. See you in a tick.
Hello and welcome back to our continued coverage of the quarterfinals here at the World Magic Cup. We've already got one match in the books, 3 more still to come before we develop our semi-finalists, and you can see our 2 teams here ready to battle. This is Team Israel versus China. We have Shahar Shenha leading the team of Yuval Zuckerman and Ahmed Edgar for Israel. On the other side of things, Liu Yu Chen is leading Song Long and Zhu Ming for China, and we're going to get a chance to see whether or not Israel can have a world champion alongside a World Magic Cup champion in Shahar Shenha. Potentially historic performances from them, as we are now ready to head down to our feature match area for our second quarterfinal.